to San Juan, Puerto Rico, as Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz told you and advised you, you don't need to go anywhere else. We have everything in San Juan. So I hope that in your days in this conference, you can go to San Juan, you can go to Santurce, you can taste the beauties of our beautiful island, but don't go anywhere else. Let me tell you something. I'm hosting right now, at this same moment, I'm hosting a breakfast as chairman of the Banking Committee of the Senate, and I have bankers waiting for me. Let them wait. Puerto Rico created a constitution in 1952 that expressly guarantees workers' rights. That's very interesting. If you look at the US Constitution that was created 200 years ago, it doesn't have workers' rights. Our Constitution has provisions for workers' rights. But apart from the specific provisions for workers' rights, it has a very important concept that all men are created equal. That comes from the US Constitution, but we have it here on our own local constitution. And that's important concept of all men are created equal, that as Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz stated, back in the day did not include women, didn't include black people, didn't include anybody, just men. And men with property. Has been expanded through the years, but with the fight, the struggle of workers, of people that have struggled to have their own rights and to expand that concept that all men are created equal. In that same concept, as soon as I got elected to Senate, I had made a promise 15 years before being elected to work on what I insist is the civil rights issue of my generation, LGBT rights. When I was a law student in the University of Puerto Rico, I had the opportunity to participate in the first legal aid clinic for LGBT rights. And I must share with you a case that I handled back in the day. Somebody died. The person who died had an insurance policy that anybody, and I mean anybody that paid for the funeral expenses of the deceased person, the insured person, could go to the insurance company to claim reimbursement of those funeral expenses. No trouble with that. However, when the insurance company found out that the person that was claiming reimbursement for funeral expenses was the gay couple of the deceased, they refused payment. So, that was the case. As a lawyer, what do? You get your facts right, and then you go to study applicable law. So, being very naive and 23 years old, I had a lot more hair back in the day. I said, you know what? I'm going to open the law books. I'm going to find the applicable non-discrimination provisions for the LGBT community that protected my client. And you know how many laws I found protecting the LGBT community back then? 0. No laws. I solved the case because I fight and I scream and whatever. So I solved that case, but back in the day, I promised myself, if I get elected anytime in my life to the Senate, my first bill right out of the box will be to protect the LGBT community as an issue of human rights. And 15 years later, that's exactly what I did. My first bill, the first bill that I went to the Secretary of the Senate to file, was Senate Bill 38. That bill was to prohibit workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. My first bill in the workplace. You know, I said, well, this could get a little controversial, but people will understand and we'll get past, no problem. How wrong was I? A month after I filed the bill, the largest demonstration ever of people against the bill on the so-called march in support of family and marriage. I don't know why family and marriage had anything to do with workplace non-discrimination, but was held here in San Juan, outside my office. So I was like, I was a little wrong with my assumption that this would not get so controversial. And I had to fight, and I have to thank the support of Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz in that struggle. And I have to thank the support of the unions who held a press conference days before we passed the bill in the Senate, supporting workers' rights in the workplace, supporting LGBT rights as human rights, as workers' rights. They were there beside me. And let me tell you something. In my long career of 2 years, now in the Senate, I have to say that session in the Senate where we passed the Senate Bill 238 was one of the greatest experiences in my life, and I'm convinced one of the greatest experiences of all the senators that participated in that. I really felt that the Senate elevated in its debate for human rights in the workplace. That day, we passed Senate Bill 238 5 months into office, and it became Law 22 of 2013. Puerto Rico is one of the few jurisdictions that prohibits workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Apart from that, and a senator for this district of San Juan, we have a huge immigrant population, mostly coming from the Dominican Republic. The people of the Dominican Republic come to Puerto Rico to work. They come here to work, to raise their children with us, to struggle. However, they have had a big problem. They work, even undocumented immigrants here work a lot, but they do not have access to deposit their hard-earned money in banks or credit unions. So I filed a Senate bill that also became a law this year in order for undocumented immigrants to open deposit accounts in banks and cooperatives. And you know what? The cooperativas, the credit unions, are already opening those accounts. It is the first law in the whole, in all of the jurisdictions of the U.S., it is the first law passed at the state level to provide for just that. And let me tell you something else. The credit unions, the cooperativas, with their history of solidarity with the people, with the workers, are already opening those accounts. And let me tell you something, as was said earlier, I come from the banking sector. So next week, I have cited all of the banks of Puerto Rico to come before my committee to explain to the people of Puerto Rico why are they discriminating against our immigrant workers and they're not opening accounts. We'll have them there because financial access to undocumented immigrants is an issue of civil rights too. they can work like everybody else, and they have that right. Let me finish my presentation here saying one thing. As you all know, Puerto Rico is undergoing a fiscal crisis and an economic depression. This is our 9th year of economic recession. That any good economist will say, hey, you have been 9 years in a recession, you're in a depression, really. And we have had to make difficult decisions. But one of those decisions that are coming up before us at the legislature is whether to impose austerity measures regarding workers' rights. As most of you know, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund's reside to solve problems is, amongst other things, to impose a labor reform. Which is a beautiful word, labor reform. We're going to reform labor. But we all know what we're talking about. It's affecting workers' rights. I have analyzed this. I have talked to my good friends in the labor movement. And let me tell you that in the past 20 years, people from the store that I buy my newspapers are really confused, because I buy Claridad, which is a leftist newspaper, and I buy the Caribbean Business, which is the paper of the capitalist sector in Puerto Rico. So they get kind of confused. Hey, you're from the left or from the right? What's happening around this? And for 20 years I have heard the song that we have a lot of workers' rights in Puerto Rico. And I say, and what is the problem with that? However, in this difficult situation, there are proposals floating around that could become bills that we will have to take a decision in the next few months about lessening workers' rights in Puerto Rico. And I already have made my decision. My vote is no. And why I oppose labor reform, as it has been stated? We cannot put the whole weight of Puerto Rico's economic recovery on the shoulders of workers. Workers are already struggling with higher taxes, with lesser services from the government, and a few years ago, somebody had the bright idea to affect workers' rights from workers that work on Sundays. And with the promise that if they reform that part of our labor laws, we will create 25,000 jobs in that sector. And you know what happened? We lost 25,000 jobs in that sector. So, without any objective evidence that lessening and threatening workers' rights in the workplace will have a positive impact on our economic development model, my vote is nay. I will oppose labor reform. I will protect workers' rights, even against my own government. So, on that positive note, I welcome you again to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I hope that you have a great conference. We have to protect the rights of women, of young workers, and workers' rights are human rights. So thank you, and welcome to San Juan.